Right. I was gonna do.
Okay, we're recording. The program will begin in just a few minutes.
Oops. Oh, there it is. Oops. Yeah, something happened there.
Coming back.
It's back.
Yes. Okay. Have to be very careful.
Yeah.
With all these connections.
Okay. Everybody's being very patient.
Lots of pizza.
Yeah. Pictures.
Me too. So is this St. Mary's Pizza, or did you get it from a local pizza place?
Mountain Mike's.
Mountain Mike's.
I love Netflix. Hi. Hi.
Nope. Help yourself.
We might have to pull a couple.
This
of
is the
these.
front row seat. We'll be calling on you a lot, just so you know.
Wonderful.
How can we do some more chairs? Oh, he's gonna sit.
Oh, someone's coming on. Ryan.
You all are doing a thing on a couple of the, are you all from the Honest class? You're doing something on a couple of the propositions like tomorrow, right? Or
We have an event today at 6:30 with Bridge.
oh, okay.
And so we're talking about Prop 36.
Oh, okay.
Where's the event at?
Dante 114.
Oh.
I think Bridge posted about it, and so it got out to a lot of people. People came up to me in class today, so I think we'll get a good turnout.
Are you all gonna have food?
Right.
Would you like to take a couple
Yeah,
pizzas?
I mean, we can, yeah.
Because we have more than we expected, and so I wouldn't want it to go to waste.
Are we good? Is the volume on?
I think so. We should maybe. Hey, Ryan, can you hear me?
Ryan, can you hear us?
He may not be
Yeah,
there.
I can hear you.
Okay,
Oh, good.
wonderful.
Because I'm wondering if we stand up, if he could still hear. I might try. You don't think so?
I think it's actually quite comfortable.
You
But
do?
one thing,
Yeah, it's nice to see
It's
you all
just chatty.
here.
Yeah.
So this is one of many democracy strengthening events that we have this semester. My name is Zara Ahmed. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a politics and justice community and leadership professor. And so this event is organized because the League of Women Voters does such great work helping our communities understand the propositions on the ballot. And so we invited them to kind of help educate all of us. because sometimes the language can be kind of confusing, and this can help us be more informed voters. So I'll let our speakers introduce yourselves as far as your background, and then we have plenty of time for Q&A. You can ask questions as we go, and yeah, hopefully you'll be more enlightened by the end of the presentation. So thank you.
And just before you begin, this is Gina Kessler-Lee, and who works in the library as a librarian. And I'm Sharon Sabota, and I work in the Center for Women and Gender Equity. So we've been really happy to be able to collaborate a lot with Professor Ahmed and others, and our friends from League of Women Voters. I apologize.
Not a problem.
I also just want to put something on all of your radar. On November 5th, Election Day, we are going to have a watch party from 4 to 9 p.m. It'll be catered, there'll be a mocktail bar, there'll be decompression space, there'll be people available if anyone is triggered or just wants to talk about what might be an unsettling situation or a stressful situation, that will be there. And so, yeah,
Right.
and I'm so excited for this because a lot of people get only focused on the national candidates, and in reality, the local propositions have a larger bearing on our lives. So thank you for being willing to be with us
You bet.
today.
Right.
Which is providing the video, because it looks like it's set to blur, and so you can't actually see anything.
I have no idea.
Okay, I believe it looks like this one has the video on, so first of all, I can't see you, so if you wanna be on camera, you might, I don't know, if you wanna be somewhere where
I
I can
think we
see
want to
you.
make sure people can hear us.
Okay,
Right, that's,
So
and
then you
and
wanna
this
be
is as
tough
far as it
to-
can go, and we
Okay.
wanna
so
talk
let's,
to these
The
people.
thing is, you can
Turn it
actually
off.
we could turn it towards you.
Oh, but
Because-
that's not looking at our audience. That feels weird.
Yeah, we would like to look at the audience,
well,
and Ryan
you
can listen.
okay,
The audience.
You can
We'll
look
just
at
put
the audience.
We'll put the thing in front of you.
yeah.
I don't think it's long enough.
So if we let's try. We're just gonna put it like here, so at least, does this work? Or are people,
It doesn't help.
it helps a little bit.
You can see you. No, I can see you. You want you want the video to record the audience, or?
That's
We
your call,
want-
Sharon.
We want to be looking at. the
Yeah,
people
you go ahead.
talking to
It's okay, just so that we see. You'll be able to.
Okay, as long as people be able to hear us.
Yeah, they'll be- Yep, they'll be able to hear you. We'll have it still close to you. And they'll see.
Sounds great. You figure out what you want to do.
Perfect.
All right,
We'll kick it off. You guys have been waiting for a little bit. So I'm Janet Lloyd, and this is Sue Brandy, and we, as you know, are both with the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley. And I'm just going to give you the 30 seconds on the league. Go to the next slide.
I'm gonna try.
We are a 104-year-old organization. So we were started when women got the vote in 1920. Yay! Long time ago. And our goal at that time was to help women who were newly enfranchised in particular, but all voters to understand more about what elections were about, how do you participate in an election actively, and most importantly, how do you get the information you need to make good decisions when you actually do go vote? So that was a really important part of what we do. We are non-partisan. That means we never ever in those 104 years have supported or opposed candidates or parties. We don't take positions on those. We are a 501c3. We're not allowed to take positions on those. Often there's kind of a blurring for some organizations about that, but we take that really strongly. We do, though, take positions on issues, and we take positions on all kinds of issues that have to do with local governance and education and defense and all kinds of stuff. So we do take positions on issues, but never on candidates or parties. We are here today with our education hats on to talk to you about the pros and cons of the 10 statewide ballot initiatives. We will not tell you where the league stands on them. Instead, we will give you the information so you can make a good decision. And one quick disclaimer before I turn it over to Sue. Well, actually, go to the next slide, if you would. Oh, sorry. Sue will talk about the 3 sources that we use. I was just going to say, we are not policy experts. You guys are probably more policy experts than we are. We're just hoping to give you enough information about both sides of each of the propositions, the pro side and the con side of who supports them, so that you can make your own decision. But we're not experts. So if you come up with questions, hopefully we can answer them. If not, we'll get back to you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sue Brandy, and I've been with the league about 8 years, done pros and cons whenever the elections have come around. My background is I'm a clinical social worker, but haven't done that for a while. I've been retired. I do want to say that if you've been studying the ballots, you might have some information to add to our information. As Janet said, we're not experts, and so You might have done more research on some of these than we have. Jump in, join us. Okay, so the pros and cons are set up also as unbiased, nonpartisan explanations. And the way that this is set up is that,
Sorry, I was just gonna try to put this up top so you could see the whole slide.
Yeah.
Just so it's a little bit,
I can.
yeah, you
change
can
it so
switch
it's
it just on the
one.
top or
Yeah.
whatever. Little easy.
Mhm.
That's good.
okay, all right. So each of the ballots will have the issue presented, which will tell you what the law is now, what the situation is now. We'll provide the context of the ballot, which is basically what is the ballot? What's the law? Or what are they trying to change? And then the arguments for and against. And you'll notice that there's these blue ones. And though most of these have been presented by or provided by the state league. And they have some, some information. Janet and I have also done some research to find out who supports and who opposes each of the ballots and where's the money? Who's supporting it financially and who's supporting it in opposition. So we think that makes a big difference besides just the very basic information.
Try the one underneath the down
Oh.
down arrow.
Nope.
Click on the right screen.
And will that keep doing that? This
Yeah, you can either click that or now.
Yeah, that one didn't work before. Okay.
I know it was, the wrong thing was highlighted.
Okay. We're going to get this someplace along the line. We have 10 ballot measures, and the 10 ballot measures are different types, 5 initiatives and 5 proposals that have come from the legislature. So the proposals that have come from the legislature are bonds and constitutional amendments, and the other 5 have been put on the ballot by the public, by people who have spent money to get signatures at the grocery store and have gotten their desire onto the ballot.
So you'll see the two through 6, we'll go through these numerically. 2 through 6 came from the legislature, and 32 to 36 came from citizen petitions.
Okay.
You'll see a difference.
Besides the League of Women Voters of California's information, we have looked to Ballotpedia, Cal Matters, and the Legislative Analyst's Office for some of the information we're providing. Okay, the first one. First, the bond is actually Proposition 2. And the reason for that is because Proposition 1 for this year was in March. And now we're on Proposition 2 for 2024. This is a bond for public schools. So the situation right now is that many public schools and community colleges need repair, renovation, and new classrooms. The state government raises money to help build and repair facilities by selling bonds, which are then repaid over time. That is the only way that schools in California can get money for construction and capital projects. Otherwise they can get money from the general fund for education, curriculum, some repairs, but this is the only way they can get construction. The proposal would allow the state to sell $10 billion in bonds to help build and repair schools. That would be $8.5 billion for K through 12 and 1.5 for the community colleges. The fiscal effects is that the state will need to spend money to repay these bonds, $500 million per year for the next 35 years. The government, the effects will be on the local government. It will be that they will have to raise matching money if they want to receive a bond.
That makes sense to you guys? Yeah, you know about bonds.
Okay. So the supporters say the bonds will help pay for badly needed repairs and security improvements, thereby making schools and community colleges safer. Opponents say that Prop 2 makes taxpayers pay bond interest over many years, and the money will go to wasteful construction projects instead of classroom instruction. A little more information. Some opposition to this proposition is that the districts have to pay between 40 and 50% of the bond amount of the money they need. So they apply to the state. The state will pay between 60 and 50% of the cost, but the district has to pay the rest. And if you come from a poor district, less wealthy, smaller, it's harder to raise money, and you therefore can only match a smaller amount. So some people who are opposed to this are opposed based on the fact that this part of the law hasn't changed, and they want it to change. The supporters who say, well, we still have to do something now, add that the improved schools improve test scores, it improves attendance, and it reduces suspensions. Just want to add a couple of other things. Prop 2 includes broadband access, HVAC, plumbing, structural improvements, not just new construction. It does reduce the, for the poor district, it reduces the amount they have to match to between 40 and 45% rather than keeping it at 50%. The last time that we had a school bond measure passed was 2016. In 2022, the state audit, which is what, 2 years ago, the state auditor's office estimated that at that time, they needed $7.5 billion in state funding for the following 5 years, just to meet the current and anticipated modernizations for California school at that time. So in the meantime, there's been 2 more years of requests coming in from the school districts, because the school districts keep making requests, even though all the past money has been spent. So we're at a deficit in terms of meeting the requests of school districts. So Prop 2 contributors and funders. The supporting funding has raised $2.42 million, and it's the groups that are supporting it are the California Building Industry Association. They like things that they can build. Yes on Prop 2, Coalition for Adequate School Housing Issues Committee, the Association of California School Administrators Issues PAC, California Alliance for Jobs, and there were miscellaneous smaller donations coming in besides that. The opposing funding there is no opposing funding, but the opposition is the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association.
Okay, so it makes sense about bonds, right? Bonds are the way that governments, local governments, state governments can have funding to do improvements to infrastructure and broadband and other kinds of things that public institutions need. They don't want, well, we need to buy a house. We don't have the money in our checking account. We have to go to a bank and get a loan. It's essentially, it's the same sort of thing that governments do too through bonds. Somebody's got to pay for bonds. So you can invest in a bond and get the percentage rate back and then get your money back at the end of 35 years in that case. So you can do it that way. Local bonds end up on your property taxes. You can see the line on your property taxes. And if they're on the state, then it's got to come out of our taxes that go up there. So there's always this balance about, do we really want to be spending more money? Do the schools really need it? Do we have a real need? There's always that argument sort of that goes on between the people who support and the people who don't about bonds. And we have a few other bond issues that we're
one other
discussing
thing
today.
The $500 million is a fraction of a percentage point of the budget of California. It is a very, very small amount compared to what we spend. So even though it sounds like really a lot of money, it's a very small portion of the state budget.
Okay, questions, comments, thoughts? Want to make this sort of conversational? Yes.
Do you know if the money that's being raised will go towards just repairing and improving classrooms or towards like building?
There will be requests on all of those levels, depending upon the district. I think, I don't really know this, but I believe because of the decrease in the population of students, there's probably very few new schools being built. But there's lots of schools that don't have air conditioning for these really hot days we've been having, and heat, and I believe another piece of this, although part of this will come from federal government, is the lead in the pipes and the school. So it can be used for many different things. So it could be construction, but the district would have to justify that they need a new school.
And the issue in Oakland right now is they're proposing to close schools, right? So it depends on the population within each area. But these are really big issues. People think a lot about how they want to vote on these. Okay, Prop 3 is a little different. It is a constitutional right to marriage. So you probably don't remember this, but in 2008, we passed in this state Prop 8, which amended the Constitution to define marriage as between a man and a woman. So this proposition is saying, do we want to define marriage as a fundamental right for all, regardless of sex or race, and take away that language, this state, which we just put in 2008, that states that marriage is only between a man and a woman. Okay. Okay, our Constitution states it as I just said. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that it is unconstitutional to outlaw same-sex marriages, and that same-sex couples must be treated the same as opposite-sex couples. And that is the law in the land, and that's the law in California. California now allows same-sex marriage and has for a number of years. This proposition is saying, should we make the change back from 2000, when we changed it in 2008, back to a broader definition, which is the way it's handled in our state already. So the proposal is to amend our Constitution to enshrine marriage equality. The fiscal effects are really nominal, no change in income or cost for states or local governments, as far as the LAO can determine. So supporters say that the California Constitution should affirm marriage equality. It is the law of the United States. Our Constitution should support that explicitly. We changed it back in 2008. Let's change it back now so we'll really meet what the law says today. Prop 3 protects the fundamental right to marry regardless of gender or race, an important right that we already have. Opponents say same-sex marriage is already legal, so why do we need to change the Constitution? Changing the Constitution is kind of a big deal, right? Why do we need to do that? And Prop 3 opponents also say that it removes all rules for marriage, opening the door to child marriages, incest, and polygamy. Go to the next one, we'll talk about that. So I already said Prop 8 amended it in 2008. And just for the record, incest is illegal, polygamy is illegal, and marriage under the age of 18 is illegal unless you get express permission from a parent or guardian and the court. Make sense? Questions? Okay. So who are the contributors? Supporters are this Kevin DeLeon, Believing in a Better California Ballot Measure Committee. Yes on propositions 3, 32, and 33. And you can see they have a little over $500,000. Yes on Prop 3, sponsored by Equality California, a little less than $2 million. Federated Indians, California Federators of Teachers, etc. Planned Parenthood. Opposition is the California Family Council and the American Council of Evangelicals.
Before we go on to that, I want to just add that another reason that people believe we need to put this into the Constitution is that there is the fear that the Supreme Court will change the law about same-sex marriage the way they did with Roe versus Wade. And if we don't have that, our Constitution changed, there will be people who will say, well, we have to follow that law. And we would have to go back to that law. So it's a protection against changing the, a change that could happen with the Supreme Court. Okay, Prop 4. Prop 4 authorizes bond for safe drinking water, wildfire prevention, and protecting communities and natural lands from climate risk. So the question is, should voters let the state sell $10 billion in bonds, another bond issue, for various projects to reduce climate risk and impacts? The situation right now is that climate change is negatively impacting all Californians, but especially people with low income. Well, we all just have experienced a summer that is the hottest summer we've ever had. Florida is still trying to recover from hurricanes, but we have wildfires, heat, rain, all of the above. The proposal is to allow the state to sell $10 billion in bonds for projects related to water, wildfire, clean air, and to mitigate extreme heat. Fiscal effects are that the state would pay $400 million annually for 40 years to repay the bond. Protecting natural resources could reduce the costs of future damage. There are some people who believe that the cost of putting the money into the climate, to preventing climate problems is about the same as what it will cost us later, and perhaps less than if we put the money in to repair. Somebody mentioned this at a recent pros and cons that I thought was really important. That's just talking about the money. That doesn't even talk about the life that
Human
is,
cost.
that the human involvement that is impacted by climate change and the disasters. Okay, supporters say Prop 4 will help protect our communities, health, and the economy. Opponents say that the bonds are the most expensive way to fund government spending and should not be used. Prop 4 provides funding for unproven technologies with no real evidence of success. So the supporters are Clean Action, National Wildlife Federation, California Professional Firefighters, California Labor Federation, and small donations. The total raised was $639,000. There was no funding for the opponents, but our Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association and the GOP Senate Leader Brian Jones, Assembly Member Jim Patterson opposed this measure.
Y'all know who Howard Jarvis was? I don't think he's alive anymore. Prop 13.
Okay, yeah. Howard Jarvis was the instigator of Prop 13. The committee continues, and its primary goal is to reduce and get rid of all taxes. They're anti-tax.
You'll see their name come up a number of times in this.
Can I ask
Proposals.
about, you might not have this expertise, and I don't blame you either, but as far as the bond process goes, I've always been fuzzy about that. So if I buy one of these bonds and I can decide on the amount or maybe not, I don't know, is it that I have to be willing?
It would be an investment. So you'd invest $10,000 in the bond.
And then in 35 years or however long.
You'll get it back, and there's a coupon rate. There's a percentage rate you will get every quarter or annually or whatever to pay you for getting your money.
So is it kind of like an IOU? Because how's the government, let's say in 35 years or 25 years or whatever, is it the assumption that the government will just have that money? Like if they need to borrow the money now, who's to say that they'll have the money then?
It's a good
But is
question.
it just assume that they will and
Well, and
what a trusting?
they have to pay it back over time, right? So
Right.
it's more assumed like, yeah, they don't have $10 billion to put towards this right now, but they've got 400 million a
Right.
year. And so it just spreads out the cost, I guess.
It's kind of like a mortgage, the mortgage of your house. And by the end, you're paying off your
Yeah.
debt. Yeah,
Okay, all right. that makes
Yeah.
I missed it, like, who pays the bonds and how do you?
well, you can invest in bonds as a public. And then the state will pay back the debt.
I see like, I'm just like, why would that benefit me? Like,
Well, the government needs a way to fund big projects, right? They can't do it just from the taxes that we pay already. They need ways to build things, government, public things, right? Schools and bridges and all that sort of stuff. And they do the financing vehicle for state and local governments or bonds. That's fine.
And they don't increase taxes.
well, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, if it's the same as like the stocks and bonds that I invest in, like, does it go up and down? Do I get money back?
You
Or
get
is it
locked into a particular coupon rate, a percentage that they will pay you back. And they guarantee that you will get your full investment back at the end of the term, if not before. They can pay it off early too. They can do what's called call the bonds, which they'll pay early. And it's free from federal, and if it's a state bond, free from state income taxes. The amount of money you're bringing, the interest you're bringing in is not accrued as part of your income, it's tax-free.
So that's an
The
incentive.
big incentive.
Yeah.
You get other kinds of bonds from private companies. They sometimes float bonds too. That's not tax-free. It is tax-free if it's from the government.
And a lot of these don't have your tax write-off. Because the company.
It just doesn't get included as part of your income. So when you get the coupon payments, the percentage back from the bonds, whether it's quarterly or annually or whatever it is, that money does not get included in your taxable income that is, you have to pay taxes on.
Tax-free.
It's tax-free, right?
But going back to your question, is it a gamble, like, if they don't have money, or is it guaranteed that you're?
They're pretty reliable.
Yeah.
Depends on
State
the,
government. Unless like there's an apocalypse, but
right.
I think it's pretty unlikely, it's very, very likely, because I've heard that bonds are like a really safe bet.
Yeah.
Right.
A safe investment, because the government pays their.
There's been a couple cities in the state that have gone belly up, that couldn't pay their bonds, couldn't pay anything. But the state has always been good on its bonds, and the rating companies rate
Yeah.
states in terms of how financially viable they are. And I think California's have always been rated really high. So there's a way for you to know to as a consumer,
Right?
creditworthiness, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
California, so just like us, if the way our credit is rated, if we don't pay our bills, we'll have a lower rating. So you can check in the state that have a high rating, it means they pay their bill, they can be trusted.
It's not like an overarching, like all of it, it's just like you, sorry.
Oh, no, no,
Specific-
keep going, great
like,
questions.
Specific, like if it's like Proposition 4, like I'm paying bonds specifically for that proposition, or is
You
it?
pay bonds particularly for that purpose of the
Yeah.
proposition. Okay, the next one, actually, this one is a kind of continuation about the bond discussions. This one's really interesting. So this is Prop 5. It allows local bonds for affordable housing and public infrastructure with 55% voter approval versus 66.7, which is what it is today. So this would lower the voter threshold. When you go to vote on these things, they're tallying the votes, right? In our county in Martinez, and they're counting how many yeses, or actually across the state, these are statewide. They're counting how many yeses and how many noes, right? And if it passes, if this one passes, then it would change the threshold for future bonds for affordable housing from 66.7 to 55%. Okay, this is a really big deal for affordable housing. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, next slide.
Sorry. I was so engrossed in listening to you.
So as I said, the current law is 66.7 of voters, the voter threshold, have to say yes to pass a local bond measure. That's not just a majority. That's 2/3. That's a lot. Can you imagine, particularly like for local governments trying to get bonds passed, you've got to have a lot of people show up and vote yes. That's a pretty tough sale. It's not just a majority. So lowering it to 55% would make it much easier to pass those bonds.
That means for every single no vote, you have to have 2 yes votes.
Right, exactly right. So there'd be little effect on state budgets, but it could impact local budgets. Supporters say it gives communities more tools to make housing affordable, and it will allow local voters, you and me, who live in this community right here, to address community needs such as housing and safe streets. It'll make it much easier for governments and schools to get, well, this is just affordable housing, but to get, schools are already at the lower level. By the way, the 66.7% was part of Prop 13. So Prop 13, way back in 78, was it 78? 74? Long time ago, Prop 13 happened
72?
and it changed the whole way property taxes happen in this state. We could talk about that another time. You probably may have already talked about that. So it raised it to 66.7%. So it allows local voters to address needs more specifically within their own areas. Opponents say existing protections from high debt, it changes existing protections from high debt caused by bond issues in the California Constitution. So this is, again, not everybody thinks bonds are the way to go. I don't think there's any other financial vehicles that I know of for governments to raise money to do this sort of infrastructure or capital improvement, but people don't like to pay more. I mean, it's coming out of my pocket, either through a property tax or through my income tax, right? Into the general fund. So it's real money. And Prop 5 pushes cost of infrastructure onto local governments and taxpayers. Okay, I think we all know we have a shortage of affordable housing. Lowering the threshold to pass affordable housing and infrastructure bonds will help local governments meet state mandates. There are state mandates to many communities across our state about how many affordable houses have to be available to the public at certain dates. Those are hard to build. There's all kinds of challenges to do it, to get bonds to help do that at 55% versus 67.7 is a real help for local governments.
Some of Steve's,
Okay, opponents are the California Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors, Business Roundtable, et cetera.
There's a lot of things.
So until yesterday, Gerald Marcel is he owns a big investment company. I always had him up there. I wasn't
He's a
sure who it was.
developer.
He's a developer. Those were opponents. Supporters are California professional firefighters and Habitat for Humanity. There was no dollars allocated at the time that we did this in the support Prop 5 campaign.
Yeah, just to repeat that part, we put on all the money piece of this about a month ago. There's probably a lot more money in it. And if you look at Ballotpedia or Cal Matters, they will have kept it up to date.
And I just also want to mention in the year 2000, so 24 years ago, Prop 39 passed, and that lowered the voter threshold for bonds for school construction, replacement, or rehab to 55%. So 24 years ago, we made this change for schools, which has very much helped schools get money to do improvements.
Okay, Prop 16.
Yes.
For Prop 5, there's a number of other organizations that support it. They didn't give financially, but like the Affordable Housing Community, lots of other advocacy organizations are very supportive
Thank you.
of Prop 5.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
again, that if you go back to Ballotpedia, Cal Matters, all of those will have been added in the last month.
Few weeks. It's
But-
very dynamic. Money's pouring in, organizations are advocating, et cetera. So,
Proposition 6. Proposition 6 eliminates constitutional provision allowing involuntary servitude for incarcerated people. Should the California Constitution be amended to remove the provision that allows involuntary servitude to be used as punishment for a crime, prohibit punishment for refusing a work assignment, and allow voluntary work assignments in exchange for credit to reduce sentences?
involuntary servitude, who knew, huh? I mean, really? Whew.
So the situation is that the California Constitution prohibits forced labor except as punishment for a crime. 16 states, including California, allow this exception. And basically that means people in prison.
Is that a surprise? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I knew that.
Doesn't this directly conflict with the 13th Amendment, which bans slavery?
No, it's actually the 13th Amendment. It stems from the 13th Amendment because the 13th has that loophole. No, slavery is abolished except punishment for a crime. So it reflects the same sentiment as the 13th Amendment.
Thank you. Professor.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah. So the proposal is to amend the Constitution to prohibit involuntary servitude for any reason. Prohibit disciplining people in prison who refuse a work assignment, that they have a choice to do a work assignment or not. Fiscal effects is the effect on the state, local, and local costs are uncertain. Any effect is unlikely to exceed tens of millions of dollars annually. And like I said before, that is a very, very small fraction of the budget that wouldn't make a whole lot of
Did you
difference.
have a question for that?
I think the fiscal effects, I was
Okay.
basically gonna like ask like, how much money they're making off of this labor, because
It-
I know they have them built things,
Yeah.
sell things. and-
It is very common for a person in prison who's doing a job to get 25 cents an hour.
The state makes
Right.
money on.
Right. 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 Yeah. So there's, they don't get paid much. So therefore they also don't have the incentive. I mean, it's hard to get excited about doing a job that you not only don't want to do the job, but you're not getting rewarded for it. There's not much in it for them.
Go ahead, Sharon.
No, I was just gonna like say, firefighters are an example of
Yes.
people who are incarcerated have been on the lines doing the same
Right,
jobs as
right.
well-paid firefighters who have been training and everything, and then once they finish their incarceration time, and they're not applicable for that same, they're not
Right.
eligible for that same.
Because
job.
because of their felony. Once they are out of prison, they have a felony on their record and they can't be hired to do the job that they've been doing. So,
It's fine stuff.
supporters say that Prop 6 restores human dignity by ending forced labor, which constitutes slavery and violates human rights. And it improves the safety by public by focusing on rehabilitation of incarcerated people rather than kind of busy work. Opponents, there were no opponents at the time of this slideshow being produced. There were no opponents against Proposition 6. This proposition was placed on the ballot with bipartisan support, and it was introduced through the California Legislative Black Caucus. The statement that they make is that the passage supports rehabilitation and reintegration of incarcerated people by allowing choice of meaningful rehab and education. Support is about $319,000 that was available at back a month ago. All of us or none action supported it. The ACLU of Northern California, Communities United for Restoration of Youth Justice, and miscellaneous other donations. Other supporters included the California Teachers Association and the California Black Legislative Caucus without money attached. There were no opposed, but Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association opposed it.
And there's some controversy about this one that it will go to the courts, and the courts will decide whether inmates should receive the minimum wage, which is the next proposition we're going to be talking about. So the amount of reimbursement to inmates is important, right? No matter what side you're on this thing. And it could increase costs if inmates are required to be paid minimum wage. There could be some.
So currently there are 90,000 inmates in California.
Yeah.
40,000 work in construction, yard work, and cooking, and most earn less than 74 cents an hour. So if you can imagine that if the people who are incarcerated were actually making more money, even if it wasn't minimum wage, if it was significant, they could be saving for getting themselves the money to get into an apartment, first and last month's rent and things for when they get out, or they could be sending money home to their families. Right now at 74 cents an hour, they can't even buy a candy bar. So that's part of this.
Go ahead.
Would they have like access to the money like while they're in prison? Or is it like you're working now and then when you get out, we'll give the money to you?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm guessing they would have at least some access because I know that they are able to purchase some things in prison. So I'm assuming they would get at least a portion of it, and maybe they choose, I get this much, or, send that to my family or put it in. I don't know the answer.
Did you know that? Like maybe you haven't thought about that.
Very vaguely, I've just watched a few documentaries from other classes that were years ago, so I don't know if they're up to date now.
Mhm.
But it largely depends on the prisons, if they're state, private, etc.
Oh,
And then
Right.
depending on the regulations within that specific prison, some allow some purchase from the wages they get and some don't allow any. And then that also comes down to like, are you a basic inmate? Are you have to be practically isolated all the time,
Mhm.
etc.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there's
of
a
course.
lot of factors.
thank you.
But again, I don't recall all the other details though.
That's helpful.
Okay, Prop 32. Who knows what the state minimum wage is right now? California. Yes,
$15 an hour?
close, $16 an hour. And who knows what the federal minimum wage is? Between $7 and $8 an hour. So states can choose to have the federal minimum wage as their minimum wage, or they can decide to have they can't go lower. They can decide to have a higher minimum wage. And we, as you can tell, at $16 versus 7 something. In California, where it's expensive to live, we have a much higher minimum wage. So this question is, should we raise the minimum wage from the current $16 to $18 by January 1, 2026, and then increase it by inflation thereafter? So the other challenge with the federal minimum wage is it doesn't have any inflation adjusters. So it stays there until Congress decides they want to make a change, which is why many states, not all, but many states have decided to go above and beyond what the federal minimum wage is. Okay. So the statewide minimum wage is $16 an hour. It says certain industries, and I'll tell you what they are. You probably heard about this one. In April of this year, 2024, fast food workers are at $20 an hour. And healthcare workers, as of this year, I'm not sure exactly the definition of all these healthcare workers, but as of this year, at $23 an hour, and in 2026, they are at $25.
I think those are medical, they're aides and.
Health aides,
Yeah.
CNAs or whatever. Okay,
It's not like
Not like
nurses and
surgeons.
stuff. Pardon me?
right. No, I think they make well. Yes,
Yeah.
It's not, and they're in business for themselves, so. There could be though, some people in medical offices who are aides and would have an increase and
Home
home
health
health
care.
aides and all that sort of stuff, yeah. So the proposal is to raise the minimum wage to $18 an hour for all employers by 2026. Now, there's a breakdown in this proposition. It says employers who have total number of employees of 26 or above would go to the $18 an hour in 2025. In a help to smaller employers who generally have kind of smaller margins and they have some cash flow issues, et cetera. If they have 25 or fewer employees, they first go to $17 an hour, I think 20, I forget when, and then they go to 18. So it's graded, so they'll have a little bit more time to adjust their payroll practices and all that stuff. And it is estimated that a living wage in this state is actually hourly $27.32, or annually, single person, $56,000, $825 a year. Minimum to standard to have a living wage, Okay, so the fiscal effects are higher wages for state and local employees will increase government costs. Absolutely. Government will have to bring up the people who are at the lower end, who might be at $16 right now, up to 18. It could also be that with those groups of employees being raised up, fewer of them will be eligible for Medi-Cal or CalFresh, which is the food stamp program. So therefore, those programs might have a lower number of people in them, which would save the government money. Sort of hard to tell. Also, employers who currently have people at $18 an hour, so they may have some at 16, they may have some at 18, may feel inclined to raise up the people who are 18 to 20 because they have to keep it fair between the people who are at the lowest end and people who might now be in the more moderate end of the scale. Does that make sense? Okay. Supporters say that it will improve the standard of living for millions of workers and just as economically fair. And opponents say raising the minimum wage will hurt businesses, raise prices, and cause job losses. And I actually have a statistics from local economists who say that the likely price increase, I mean, it could happen in certain industries, right? And I think we've seen a price increase in fast food, frankly. I think the fast food costs have gone up. Part of that is because of the wages that fast food workers are having now. Also, food prices are up, utility prices are up, could be a lot of things, right? But what economists say is that price increases would likely be less than 0.0025%. So de minimis amount, small amount.
There was an article in the San Francisco Chronicle sometime in the last week. I didn't get to read the whole thing. My husband read it and told me about it. San Francisco, they actually had a research because they've had a higher minimum wage for a couple of years. And the research says there was no significant impact on small businesses and businesses as a result of their increased minimum wage.
Because the language said that after what, 2025 or 2026, it would increase every year after that.
Yes.
By how much?
By the cost of inflation. So what I understand, most employers that I work for, they raise your wages by some amount relative to you have pool, but relative to the amount of inflation, whether that's 2%
cost of
or
living.
3% cost of living increase.
Oh.
So presumably that would follow that same pattern of cost of living. Okay, supporters of Working Hero Action for Living Wage, Kevin DeLeon, who we talked about earlier, for a total of 10.8 million. And I love the names of these. They are so descriptive. Californians Against Job Losses and Higher Prices, no 132 at $10,000. That makes sense? Okay.
All right. Proposition 33 expands the local government's authority to enact rent control on residential property. So should the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act of 1995, which is a state law, be repealed so local governments can regulate rent?
Rent control.
Right now, the situation is the state law prevents rent control on single-family homes and housing built after early 1995. Some cities have rent control laws limiting how much landlords can increase rent. in Berkeley, there is a lot of rent control because there is a lot of houses that are older than 1995. Okay. The proposal removes the law that prohibits rent control on single-family homes and housing built after early 1995. And the state stops the state from limiting local governments from having rent control. So basically, it's the decisions about rent control would go to the local areas. The fiscal effects, that there would be little effects on the state budget, but will impact local budgets if the public votes for those changes. It's not something that can be done automatically. It'll depend on on how many cities and counties pass rent control laws and what landlords do.
Can I just add something? I thought this was really interesting. So who has a guess of what % of households in California are renters versus owners? I was surprised. 44% of households in California are renters versus 35% overall across the country. 44%, that's a lot. All right, go ahead.
Okay, supporters say that the Prop 33 will allow local governments to protect renters by having limits on what their increase is. And we've all heard the stories of apartment buildings where a new owner comes in, or the owner just decides they need more money and raise the rent by hundreds of dollars per month. Local voters will be able to decide on whether and how to control rents. So it'll be within the local government. Opponents say Prop 33 will increase costs to build housing, therefore making the state's housing crisis worse. And Prop 33 will drive up costs for renters and home buyers. This may appear to be a pretty simple yes and no, but there is a question that has been raised about this proposition, in that there are people who believe that what this will do is it would have an immediate effect, immediate positive effect for renters. But on it long term, because of construction and the way that at least those people foresee that this developing, it would be a negative effect because construction would stop happening and developers would stop investing.
Speak to why they would argue that, why would developers stop building?
Because the profit margin would be less.
Oh, not a profit.
Right.
Because people who invest in that can't get a bigger return because rents will be controlled.
Yeah, right. The East Bay Times tried to talk a little bit more about the Prop 33 because Prop 33 is tied very closely to Prop 34, which Janet's going to talk about in a moment. Prop 33 was financed by the AIDS Foundation, and they've been criticized for using money from the federal drug prescription program to support this proposition and two previous initiatives. So that is a concern of some people that you'll hear from Janet. The California Apartment Association is spearheading Prop 34. And you'll find that by its wording, that it actually singles out the AIDS Foundation in that law. So we'll talk more about that. And
When go to funding, that'll help
oh, sorry.
start that conversation.
Okay, so it was, there's more endorsement on this. Okay, so Prop 3 is supported and by people and contributors. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation, $30.5 million out of $31.2 million a month ago. That may have changed. Kevin De Leon for Lieutenant Governor, United Here, Local 11, and miscellaneous donations. They also renters and homeowners for rent control, and Kevin De Leon believing in a better California. Additionally, endorsements come from the California Nurses Association, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, Housing is a Human Right, and Veterans Voices. Opposition is the California Apartment Association, the California Association of Realtors, the National Association of Realtors, the California Association of Realtors Issues Mobilization. Basically, they are all realtors that have donated here, and they put $53.9 million behind this proposition.
That there was a veterans group that was in support.
Yes,
I keep seeing commercials with, saying that there are veterans who are opposed.
I'm
And
sure,
confused.
I'm sure there are veterans who are opposed as well. This happens to be a PAC called Veterans Voices, and they support it.
I'm just gonna say, they can purchase fully turkey on Prop 33, they'll find a single mom who's home for her children, but then you watch, like, I feel like, we get skewed, and so I do feel like I'm so happy that you're including who's funding what.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the other piece about like the AIDS Foundation and the housing is like, how, if you, when you're sick and you can't, and you don't work, housing is part of your wellness, and so it's
Right.
so interesting that people.
It is.
Right. And the AIDS Foundation does own property. They don't have a great reputation of how they take care of that property, but they also are willing to take consider rent control. And they have a lot of people that they're serving that are in low income housing.
Okay, so Prop 33, the last one, which is to repeal Costa-Hawkins, which said you can't have rent control on any property after 1995. Do I have it right? 1995, was put on the ballot from Michael Weinstein and the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. So keep that in mind. So Prop 34 is connected to this. And Prop 34 restricts spending of prescription drug revenues by certain, focus on the certain healthcare providers. The question is, should certain healthcare providers be required to spend 98% of revenues from this is so convoluted, from a federal discount prescription drug program. So the federal discount prescription drug program is called the 540B program from the federal government that says to providers, whether they're hospital providers or clinics or whatever, that you can get a big discount on prescription drugs. And they give them this huge discount on prescription drugs because they are serving people who are medically underserved and are economically not doing well, right? Use that money. We want to get that medication to people who really need it. What these providers do then is then some of them turn around and bill insurance companies or state Medicaid or Medi-Cal.
And they can't do it for Medicaid, Medi-Cal.
Okay, they
It'd
can't,
only
okay.
be the private
Insurance.
insurances that they work with.
A whole lot more than they paid because they got a big discount from the federal government and they make a lot of money on that. So that's where the 98% of revenues from this program come from. So it's saying certain healthcare providers should be required to spend 98% of the money that comes from the federal government as part of that discount drug program on direct patient care and not other things, right? Not other things. And then supplemental to that, should the state be permanently authorized to negotiate Medi-Cal drug prices? This is not a proposition. This one and the one before this 33 are not propositions that were put on the ballot by legislators. These were put on the ballot because people signed at your farmer's market and out on the street, et cetera, to get this one, paid people, probably paid signature people, to get this one and the last one on the ballot, as well as the next two. These are really complicated issues. These are things legislatures, many people think legislators should figure out, not us. This is crazy. Okay, but that's what this one says. So the sixth situation is healthcare providers earn this money from the federal discount drug program, and they decide how to spend it. And Medi-Cal is a really big program in this state, as you probably know. It's a big program across the country. Lots of people, 1 in 5 people are on Medi-Cal. So what the proposal is, it would create new rules about how certain healthcare providers spend the money earned from the discount drug program. I keep saying certain because many people believe, and it is well known, that this is in reaction to Prop 33 and the rent control, which is hugely supported by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation to the tune of over $30 million. They were the big contributor to that. This is in response to that, and it's saying AIDS Healthcare Foundation, you are one of these certain providers, and we want to make sure you're not spending money on initiatives in the future to get rent control in place because it serves your personal needs. Instead, you'll have to use 98% of those dollars back on direct patient care. That make sense? Yes, okay. So it could be millions of fiscal impacts, could be millions of dollars to identify and punish those certain providers who violate the law. And then there would be money back in because there would be fines imposed, presumably. Supporters say this will ensure money from the discount drug program is used for direct patient health care, not for any other stuff. 98% of it in this, according to this proposition, will have to go into direct patient care. And it will make the discount drug program in Medi-Cal permanent.
Sorry. I
Opponents
just
say
did
it targets one healthcare provider who happens to be the AIDS Healthcare Foundation because of their support of rent control. And federal law currently allows profits from drug discounts to support any nonprofit mission of healthcare providers. It doesn't have to be direct patient care. It can be other stuff that supports their mission. Okay, supporters, yes on 34, protect patients now, 14.9 million. And oh, surprisingly, the California Apartment Association put in some, well, they are supporters. And I love the name of this one, the opponents, Stop the Revenge Initiative, no on 34 for $120,000. And of course, opponents are the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. So that makes sense how those two are connected and what that's really about. Okay, it's crazy it's on our ballot. Off the record, I don't think the league says that, but it feels crazy, right? Okay.
Okay, Proposition 35, just two more to go. Proposition 35 provides permanent funding for Medi-Cal healthcare services. Should California make permanent an existing tax on managed healthcare plans to provide ongoing funding for Medi-Cal and other healthcare services? Want to be sure that everybody in my family, all my in-laws, get Medicare and Medicaid confused. Medi-Cal is the federal program that is the Medicaid program in California that serves low income. Medicare takes care of all of us old people. Okay. The situation right now is that California pays for part of its share of Medi-Cal through a temporary tax on managed care organizations. And that tax sometimes is incorporated and sometimes it's not. The proposal is to make the existing temporary tax on MCOs permanent. MCOs are managed care organizations. Also to create new rules for how the tax money can be spent. The fiscal impact right now is an increase of about $2 to $5 billion per year to fund Medi-Cal and other health programs over the course of a few years. Additional costs to cover services are not included in Prop 35. So you will find that there are some small nonprofits who are against this because they aren't covered and they will not benefit from this and may in fact lose their ability to stay open. So supporters say that Prop 33 will support health services and improve access to doctors that help low-income people. Doctors.
It's actually Prop 35. That's
30.
an error on
Oh,
our
that's
slide.
right.
Sorry
Thank you.
about
It is Prop 35. We couldn't change that. Medi-Cal reimbursement to doctors and providers is quite low. There is no question about that. So the need for increase is absolutely true. Opponents, at the time of this going into effect, there were no arguments against Prop 35. This is the one I thought it was, or else I'm missing a card. Prop 35, is this? This is the Medi-Cal one, okay.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Medi-Cal?
Medi-Cal, yeah, Medi-Cal, the way that this works is that it gives the managed healthcare tax goes to it back to the state. And the state right now can use it either in the general fund or for Medi-Cal. And this year, because of the reduction in the budget, they're using some of that money in general funds. If this goes through, they will not have that option. They won't be able to move money around to make our state budget work. And that's called ballot box. This is called ballot box budgeting, where we are being asked to make a decision about the budget. And this one is not only about the budget now, but it's about the budget long term. And so that locks some things in that are a problem. Another problem with this is that and I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. The federal government has already indicated that if this law goes through, California will be out of compliance with the federal law, and it may affect the income coming in from the federal law. Medi-Cal is partially funded by the state, but it's largely funded by the federal government. And so we have a real dependency on the federal government to bring money in, and to put that at risk is something we have to decide. Is that worth it? And the people who support this believe that it is worth it. It's doctors, it's nurses who are in the places that are more formalized than some of the smaller nonprofits. So, oh, that's what I was looking for. I thought it in the card. So ballot box budgeting. Another change that this would make is that it would require 3/4 of the vote in both legislative houses to change the law. So that's taking, both houses in the state, both congressional houses, and having to have 3/4 of a vote. Pretty unlikely. Or else they have to have a new proposition, go back to the voters for any change. So it really makes it difficult to change this, which is similar to what happened with Prop 13, where it was so locked in by the way that it was presented that it has been almost impossible we had to change it in bits and pieces. Again, the federal government has warned that Prop 35 exploits the system. Therefore, funding could be reduced in future years. So it is one of those propositions or initiatives that was put on the ballot by somebody else, somebody with that has particular stake in this, and asking us to make a decision instead of asking the legislature to be in charge. And that becomes a problem particularly if it gets locked in. Supporters are California Hospitals, Global Medical Response, California Medical Association, Primary Care Association, goes on down, Dental Association, and $48.7 million has been put towards this. Opponents are the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network, the Children's Partnership, California Alliance for Retired Americans, and Courage California. There's no reports of donations, but there are more opponents that are, like I say, small groups. Okay.
Just want to add one quick thing on Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal's huge amount of money for our state, huge. And in fact, in this state and many other states, it's the #1 source of revenue that comes in. And in 2023 to 2024, the total dollars that came in were 139 billion with a B. And of that, 70% of it was paid by the federal government, 38 billion was paid by the state. It is a huge deal, which is why if there's a little red flag that goes up about, oh my God, what's going to be going on with 70% of our funding? That's a big deal to everybody, not only to the people who use the program, but the doctors who get paid for it and the hospitals who get paid for it, et cetera. We're talking real dough here. Okay, last one. Didn't think you could make it through. Last one, yay. So Prop 36 is kind of a controversial one. You may have heard and seen some literature on it. Prop 36 allows felony charges and increases sentences for certain drug and theft crimes. So by allowing felony charges, they mean what is currently a misdemeanor would become a felony. And we'll talk about that. So the question, should California allow people to be charged with felonies for possessing certain drugs? And the certain drugs is fentanyl, mostly. And for thefts under $950. So that's the break off between misdemeanor and a felony. If the defendant has 2 prior drug or theft convictions, so 3rd time, right? 3 strikes, right? Okay, 10 years ago, again, this is so funny, this happened before. 10 years ago, a ballot measure, which was Prop 47, which was passed in 2014, turned nonviolent crimes like drug possession, not drug trafficking, but drug possession and shoplifting into misdemeanors, unless someone has had prior convictions. So turned it from a felony into a misdemeanor. So this proposal would turn those misdemeanors back into felonies, lengthen sentences, and require some sentences be served in prison. So fiscal effects could be rather significant. Increased jail and local costs for prisons, jails, and mental health and drug treatment, likely between tens to hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Who knows how much it costs to have somebody in prison a year? It's over $100,000 to have somebody in prison. That's money we all pay, right? We're paying for those people to be there. Okay, supporters say it will make communities safer by holding repeat thieves accountable and making thieves and drug dealers serve tougher sentences. It's sort of the tough on crime thing. This will make communities safer, right? Opponents in turn say it would make California less safe by stopping crime prevention and drug treatment programs. So what happened was in 2014, the proposition changed some felonies into misdemeanors and reduced prison and jail times. So we saved that money. That money was no longer going to prisons and jails and court costs. Instead, it was coming back to the state, and those financed crime prevention and drug treatment programs that are happening throughout our schools and other places. Opponents say Prop 36 will cost taxpayers billions. We're going to be paying for more people back in prison, right? Next one. So opponents are saying it erodes criminal justice by reversing advances, what happened in 2014, aimed at reducing mass incarceration. And in fact, the federal government said that the mass incarceration was not constitutional, and California, you and many other states better reduce your prison population. That's why that happened in 2014. Stricter sentencing laws that can disproportionately impact lower income people and communities of color. And it shifts dollars from treatment and rehab back to prison. So it's undoing what happened in 2014. Supporters say yes on 36, Californians for safer communities, Californians for safe store neighborhoods, and big box stores that have had repeat retail crimes, right? Shoplifting and other kinds of crimes, Walmart, Target, and Home Depot. And everybody asks, is 7-Eleven still around? Yes, they are still around, and they put in $300,000 for this support of Prop 36. Opponents Committee to Protect Public Safety, no on Prop 36, $195,000, and the ACLU of Northern California. Little bit of additional information. We already talked about Prop 47. It would reclassify misdemeanors back into felonies. It imposes harsher sentences for drug possession, not drug trafficking, but drug possession related to fentanyl, which is a scourge on our planet, right? It's a terrible thing. And retail theft, and it shifts incarceration from county jail to state prison. The estimates of state prison population would result in increased costs of prisons, as well as adjudicating those crimes in local and state courts. And it will reduce programs for crime victims that happen in K through 12 and those in need of mental health and substance abuse services. And I want to ask, because it has come up before, about the smash and grab crimes we saw locally in Walnut Creek and many other places. In August of this year, the legislature passed laws allowing felony prosecution on third theft offense, regardless of the value. So doing away with that $950,000 threshold. And additionally, it gives judges more discretion in addressing minors who break laws. So that gives them a little more flexibility in how to address that. So that was done a little preemptively before this was put on the ballot.
And there is a separate law for smash and grab.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the amount is. There's just, it's you, and you go in and you smash a big case and take stuff. It's going to be a lot more than $950 anyway, but you know, the other thing, I'm sorry, are you?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The other thing about this is that one of the things that happens if we by putting more people in prison with felonies is when they come out, they can't get a job. So while we are still requiring people to, you know, put on their job application whether they've committed a felony, we are, you know, even if somebody goes into prison for a year because they had a little bit of a drug or they took food from 7-Eleven, they have a felony on their record and they won't be able to get much of a job once they are out. So it's there's ongoing impacts from this proposition as well. Okay. All right. Questions?
Have we totally overwhelmed everybody? There's a lot of propositions and there's a lot of detail. It's tough. If you want more information on these propositions, I think you guys know that, you can go to Vote 411, which is the League of Women Voters electronic voting tool, which is terrific. We are nonpartisan and we provide non-biased information. So you get information on the candidates in their own words. We don't correct their spelling. We don't correct their grammar or anything. And there is more information on these ballot initiatives as well.
And they've also finally they didn't start this way, but they now have financial pieces in that.
Oh, great.
That they, for what, long story. But there is information about who's financing what
Campaign.
side now.
Yep.
Do you want to go back here? Nope, that's the
Oh.
way.
We would just tell you, the League of Women Voters has a lot of information on our website. And if you scan this, it'll go right to our landing page. And there's a whole list of tools for voters that will help you, we hope, make decisions and be better informed. So it's an option for you.
Okay.
And then
And-
you know when the election is, right? I think we're getting awfully close now. It was 2 weeks
How many of you have already voted?
yesterday. Yeah. Good.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully you don't regret any of your decisions.
Okay, other questions, thoughts?
This is so helpful. You presented it so clearly. I feel like, I've been listening to podcasts and reading articles and all this stuff, but like, I love coming to your presentations. So I can just be like, prop 2, yes or no, like prop 3, yes or no, and I have like, now I can just go fill out my ballot.
Great.
I'm so glad. They are really confusing. I mean, we're not experts at this. You guys are like more experts than we are, professors over there. But the average Joe, how do we expect them to get through this stuff? I mean, it really, I think it does a disservice to voters. That's why some people believe this whole signature gathering thing, when people have a particular agenda, does not serve democracy very well, frankly. That stuff should be decided by other people. I'm not an expert. I was in the managed care industry. I didn't know anything about this stuff, right? It's hard. These are hard things for people to decide. So many people may just say, I'm not voting on that. I don't get it, which is totally okay too. You don't get it, you don't have to.
Which doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote on other things like
Right.
the candidates and down ballot from the president, because those are all really important too.
Like the parks race, I'm running for East Bay Regional Parks. And
Oh, welcome.
yeah, hi, I'm Casey Farmer, and I've been a little bit frustrated because the Chronicle has this long voter guide, East Bay Times, other even of all the races you get to vote on, and they don't mention the parks, and we are a big local government that
That matter to
serve-
lots of
we
people.
do,
Yeah.
and the climate and a lot of other things. So I'm trying to spread the word and also get prepared to vote myself. So thank you.
And isn't the East,
Casey Farmer. Yeah.
and are you,
From you today.
Well, there's one vote.
Right.
From your campaign.
Yeah. Actually, we tried to make it interactive, so you could text us back, and we've been answering lots of good questions all day.
yep, and you do a lot of good work, the East Bay Park.
And did you, have anybody signed up for Where's My Ballot? I think that's on one of these slides where they'll text you when the Martinez, the Board of Elections receives your ballot, when they process your ballot, when your
I do-
ballot has
I've
been
got that.
counted.
They-
I know, I do too. It's
Yeah.
so cool. But I think it's on one of the.
Let's see if it's on there.
checkmyballot.org or
Oh, no,
something.
wrong way.
Where's my ballot? There it is. And I just think it's really cool that they let me know when it got received, they got it, yay, etc. Just one other comment. Have been a
I don't
moderator
know
for
whether
some
to
of our
allow or dis.
candidate forums, including school board and some other stuff. And those jobs pay nominally. I mean, I think the school board members get $400 a month to pay or quarter or something. And I have been uniformly impressed by the quality of people who do those jobs. I don't know you, but you seem like, I mean, these people are committed to public service. And I just think getting all the way down the ballot and doing your homework and getting good people into these roles make a big difference in our community. School boards matter, parks and recs matter. All of this stuff really matters to how we operate in our local community. President matters, Senate matters, all of that matters, but the local stuff matters a lot too. So important for all of us.
Well, thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your evening to be here, and thank you to our,
Yeah.
our
Janet,
presenters.
it's-
We'll give them a round of applause.
It's super, it's like any from and engaging.
Good, I am so glad. Thank you all for hanging in with us. I know it was a long evening.
If you don't mind signing, making sure you sign in, we'll just send you a.
All right, let's see.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Because I'm not from the Bay Area.
Okay.
If anybody's, no, nobody's still on,
I'll leave them back to the dorm tonight.
What happened to Ryan?
Bay Area.
Ryan's already gone.
You bet.